Good morning, everybody. It's Bernard Nomberg. It is another weekly episode of Nomberg Law Live, as we do each Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. I have interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And my guest today, I had the privilege of hearing him speak live a few months ago at a large attorneys conference, and I was so moved to hear him in person. I knew some of the story previously, having seen his brother testify before Congress about the 9/11 continued victims compensation fund. So of course, my guest today is Phil Alvarez, brother of Luis Alvarez, who's testified so admirably a couple of years ago before Congress. Phil, thank you for joining me today. I'm very much looking forward to hearing you talk about our topic of the day. So thank you, sir, for making some time for us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It is an honor to be with you folks and just continue to spread the message and information for 9/11 victims countrywide. So thanks for having me.
Certainly. And for those of you who have not heard Mr. Alvarez speak or don't know of him, he's with Hansen and Rosasco. Thank you. Law firm with multiple offices in New York. And what they do is they help potential recipients of the 9/11 compensation fund to process their claims. But before I butchered even further, Mr. Alvarez, if you would, just talk a little bit of the history of how you got to where we are today. And most notably, is again, your story that you shared a few months ago where I heard you speak in Florida is such a powerful one. Unfortunately, we only have 30 minutes today to share the message. But if you would, please talk about your brother and the fight that he and so many others fought so admirably to get accomplished before Congress.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So how did I come to be the director of 9/11 outreach for one of the large firms representing 9/11 victims? In 2016, my little brother, Luis Alvarez, we call him Lou, was diagnosed with the stage 4 cancer. It was quickly diagnosed as a cancer stemming from his time at Ground Zero in 2001. He was an NYPD police detective. He was called to the scene on that awful day in our history, along with his entire team. He got there in the afternoon, stayed about 18 hours, and then was there for 3 months for, on the average, 12 hours a day. In 2016, he was told he had stage 4 cancer from his time at Ground Zero. So his first mission, so to speak, after the initial shock of notifying us, his family, what was going on, was he realized that he had something that had caught up to him so many years later, and he needed to get in touch with his team, his approximately 40, 45 guys and ladies that had gone down on an original mission of rescue, which quickly, as a nation saw unfolding on TV, became one of recovery. Approximately 3,000 souls we lost that day. And it became a stark mission for them, one that they took very seriously. They wanted to bring closure to so many families who had instantly lost their loved ones on that day. And so his first thoughts after getting sick was, I need to get in touch with these guys that were down there with me. I need to tell them about the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund, which he was signed up for. I need to tell them about the World Trade Center Health Program, which is a health program that covers victims of 9/11. And that's how Lou first became vocal about 9/11.
And at what point did your involvement begin? I know that with as close as you were with him back all of those years, this position that you're in now is a relatively new one, so to speak, compared to you being on the police force for so many years. When did you jump in and begin doing this type of work?
So I was a police officer for 32 years, 25 of them as a detective on Suffolk County Police Department on Long Island, suburbs of New York City. My brother was, of course, NYPD. We were the two police officers in the family. And in 2016, when my brother tried to start reaching out to people, he was led towards social media, which he wasn't a big social media guy, but he was told to go on a website that had retired police officers, which was appropriately named Club 23. The 23 significant in the honoring the 23 NYPD police officers that died instantly when the towers fell that day. And he was told, go on here. You may find some of your old team there. You may want to, tell them what's going on in your life with your treatment and tell them to get checked out. And so he did. And thinking he was talking to maybe 200 to 300 people, he went on there. The fact of the case, he was talking about 4,000 to 5,000 people, and didn't realize it at first. And he would just get on there. Every 2 weeks, he would go for a 6-hour chemo treatment. And we were lucky to have him for 3 years, and he would go and tell his story and get people to sign up. And he caught around the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, he caught the attention of a bunch of, for lack of a better term, guerrilla activists that were going down to Washington, D.C. To try to get the bill permanently funded, helping 9/11 victims as they get sick. And Lou caught their attention and was invited to go down. It was at that time in January of 2019 that I had reached 32 years as a police officer. And Lou was up to, unfortunately, about 60, 65 treatments of chemo over 3 years. So it was taking its toll on him. So I decided to retire from the police department and spend a little time with him. I knew that year was either, hey, the year that he would turn the corner finally, and we would be out drinking beer and fishing, or unfortunately it would go south on us like it did. And knock on wood, we're happy to have our parents alive. So I wanted to be with them. So that was the reason for retiring. Unknown to me that Lou would ask me to go down to Washington, D.C. and drive him down.
Well,
Lou could not fly because he had a medical device that was implanted he had colon liver cancer, and to try to attack the tumor in his liver directly. So because of the pressure, he couldn't fly. It's about a 5.5-hour drive from New York City to D.C. So he asked me to come. And in doing so, I got to spend some time with him, road trip, so to speak, and got to see our government in action. I was introduced to things that he was doing down there, the people he was working with.
And by the middle of 2019, ultimately it culminated with him testifying in front of congressional committees. And if anybody has seen any of his testimony, and I put a link in our comments and our notes here for the show, you can go watch it for yourself. It's incredibly powerful, and clearly it left an everlasting memory, an everlasting image and impression, because ultimately what they were trying to accomplish was accomplished. And if you would, Mr. Alvarez, share what that fund, or what was it called, and what is it now done for those who are either currently eligible or for future people who may not even realize, because they may not be impacted or been diagnosed yet, what it now has done, the legacy that your brother and others have now left for so many into the future.
Sure. Lou, in his dealings, found out that the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund, as it was signed into law in 2015, was a temporary law, And in fact, in the end of 2018, they found out they were running out of money in the fund. My brother, in a 3-year serious cancer fight, never, ever had to make the decision whether to pay his mortgage to keep a roof over his family's heads or take a chemo treatment. He was completely covered. And it made him so angry that the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund wasn't fully funded. And it motivated him, which culminated in that testimony, along with, of course, the famous Jon Stewart, activist, comedian, and so many others that testified that day. My brother, at 50 years old, looked like an old man. As a matter of fact, somebody turned to me. I was lucky to be seated right behind him, along with Jon Stewart and John Field from the Feel Good Foundation, in a gallery full of people in wheelchairs, people on oxygen, firemen, police officers, construction workers, including people from around the country that came here to New York to help us. And my brother just hit it out of the ballpark. And basically what culminated, we got back to New York after that. We don't realize the impact it was having until we got calls on the way home saying that the Daily News and the New York Post and everybody wanted to interview him. And he said, you know, what's this all about? And I told him, you hit it out of the park today, buddy. Unfortunately, we had to put him in the hospital 2 days after getting back from Washington. It went to a congressional vote, and it passed Congress. And when it passed Congress, it was named Never Forget the Heroes. James Zadroga, Ray Pfeifer, and Luis Alvarez Permanent Authorization of the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund. Unfortunately, 2 days after he was in the hospital, we were given the awful news that his liver had shut down and there was nothing else we can do. So we had to move Lou into hospice. It was during this time that we had an incredible 12 days with my brother, the family, surrounded by his family, by his partners from the police department. But he still wanted to know what was going on in Washington, and he knew that it had passed Congress, and he knew that it was going to the Senate for a vote, the bill. So he took a copy of his speech from Washington, and he wrote a personal note to Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, asking him to do the right thing. And he also asked that his police detective shield be delivered with that note to Mitch McConnell by a group that was going down to Washington. And on top of that, he asked that the news people that wanted to speak to him come to his hospital room and interview him. It really became a personal fight, a legacy for my brother to take care of victims, only because he knew that people would continue to get sick. Sure enough, the bill passed the Senate 97-2, and my brother died, unfortunately, on June 29th. On July 29th, one month after the bill was signed into law.
What an ultimate act of selflessness.
Thank you.
Even in his final days and weeks, he's not thinking of himself. He's thinking of the bigger picture. He's thinking of the future. And to have his name with the other two gentlemen named in the act, I think is completely appropriate and really honors his legacy. And for those of you just joining us or will join us later on replay, I'm talking with Phil Alvarez, brother of Luis Alvarez, who testified in front of Congress when he was dying from cancer. And he made such an impression, along with others, that the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund is now funded through the year I believe, well, not through the year, but claims can be made through the year 2090.
That is correct.
Is that correct? Phil, I'd like to talk for a few minutes about eligibility and how people can determine whether they meet the eligibility. And just as a side note, I've put the link to your bio at your firm's website, and I've also put a link to the homepage for the Victims Compensation Fund for people who may want to apply, can start the process. But I'd like to talk a little bit about eligibility, coverage, and proof for people who may have a claim to pursue.
Sure. It's what I do every day. And unfortunately, we hear from clients every day. The World Trade Center Health Program and the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund are the two federal programs that cover illnesses and compensation for people that get sick. In order to qualify, you would have to have been in the New York City exposure zone, which is defined as anywhere south of Canal Street to the tip of Manhattan. You either had to have been a first responder, a resident, a worker in that area, it's the world's financial district, a student, or visiting at that time in that area, and be able to prove it. And that, unfortunately, is 20 years later, our hardest and task is to prove eligibility. We are happy to represent victims from pretty much every state in the nation, people who have left New York. But the bill also covers first responders at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., any fire department or first responders who raced to the Pentagon, and the same for Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So anybody who went to those areas on the day of impact are eligible for the fund. In New York City, you were eligible for months following that. You didn't have to be there on 9/11, but it goes through May of 2002. It is the entire time of the cleanup, the dust of the toxic substances that were being cleaned and breathed and blown all over that area. So we take a client on an intake and we walk them through the process. It's an arduous process. It takes a long time, minimum a year and a half, but we get them into the World Trade Center for any illnesses. When my brother passed away, or since my brother passed away, they have added, I believe, about 8 or 9 types of cancers, and there are close to about 68, 69 types of cancer, and a whole bunch of non-cancer illnesses, mostly gastrointestinal, upper respiratory, sinus, sinusitis, GERD, COPD, asthma, many of those conditions. And as long as you prove eligibility, you are eligible for the World Trade Center Health Program. You go there and you get checked out. We have a national network that you can go to, or like I said, pretty much any state in the United States. And they will take your doctor's records from your personal doctors, look them over, or they will check you out there and they will certify those conditions as being 9/11 related. Once those conditions are certified, we then turn into the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund. Will file your claim. We'll do all your proof necessary to file that claim. We'll gather all your medical and submit the claim for you.
Once it's submitted, what's the approximate time for response to see if you qualify for compensation?
About a year and a half. Well, eligibility is found out very quickly. Mm-hmm. And just backing up a little bit, once you're certified by a World Trade Center Health program for an illness as being 9/11 related, you are covered for the rest of your life for that certified condition for any co-pays, medicines, doctor's visits, anything your insurance does not cover. The World Trade Center Health Program will cover that certified condition.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, we will file for compensation. There also is a claim, unfortunately, if you've lost a loved one in the last 20 years. And that is a difficult claim to process. We do it every day. We have a whole State Department that just concentrates on helping families. And I can't tell you what it means to some family who have lost a breadwinner to be able to receive some compensation for it.
Mr. Alvarez, what about children who are born after the fact, but their families reside in the zone or visited there during that time period of the cleanup? Are young children who have medical conditions potentially recipients of the fund?
Unfortunately, you would have had to been alive at the time of 9/11. The year 2090 that my brother's bill is good to is when the actuaries have figured out the longest somebody could be alive that was there in 2001. There are many studies going on, secondhand exposure studies that we hope in the coming years we'll be able to do something. To give you an example, we had a nurse who was in a hospital outside of the exposure zone, but she was doing triage that day, everybody coming in from lower Manhattan, covered in dust, covered in soot, and she was treating them one after the other. She developed a rare cancer and unfortunately, she is not eligible because she wasn't in the exposure zone. There are studies going on with the wives and families of first responders who would come home after 12 hours, again, their uniforms covered in dust and covered with the same toxic substances that were being ingested in the exposure zone. And there was illnesses that came from that secondhand. There is a very big push for that secondhand exposure. They're using, for instance, a group of first responders who were young in their 30s, and the way it turned out, a large percentage of their spouses were pregnant at the time of 9/11. And when the children were born, there was a very large percentage of difficulties with the birth and disabilities with the babies. So that we're trying, and we'll continue to fight for legislation if we can continue to show cause for it. I'm happy to continue my brother's legacy. I'm honored to be able to represent these heroes and these people that didn't ask for it, but were given quite a plate on that day.
What about deadlines? Are there deadlines? You've mentioned a few, but are there deadlines that can come and go and people may not even realize that they may lose their potential for eligibility, that people need to be mindful of?
There's been a few deadlines and a few changes in deadlines. The bottom line is once you make a claim, once you have a condition certified by the World Trade Center Health Program, you have 2 years to make that claim to the Victims' Compensation Fund. The same thing when you lose a loved one. If you lose a loved one due to a certified 9/11 condition, you have 2 years from the point that they died to make that claim. Again, the fund is open through 2090. There was a recent deadline, July 29th of this year, and that was for people that were certified and never filed the claim. And when the bill was signed in 2019, they opened up a window allowing all those people over the last 18 to 20 years that had a certified condition to be able to file a claim. And that window closed July 29th. But if you are just unfortunately being certified with a condition that's just been diagnosed, you're eligible. There are people all over. I know, the good folks in Alabama, we've had people that came up from there. 23 states immediately sent their Task Force Ones. Task Force Ones is a group of first responders that are trained in heavy rescue, heavy recovery. They include firemen, construction, medical personnel. They have to be aware of these funds, because there's so many people out there saying, well, it's for the New Yorkers. Oh, well, it's only for the first responders. I used to work in New York City before moving south, and it doesn't apply to me. Well, it does. It does. God forbid you do get sick from a condition. It very well may be related to your time in the exposure area.
And that's why I wanted you to come on the show today, to share more knowledge and information, because I'm sure there are many people out there who feel, and not knowing, that they're not eligible just because they don't live in the New York area or weren't permanent residents at the time. So thank you for sharing those things. Mr. Alvarez, I know that your entire professional career, you've been serving the public in one capacity or another. And it's always interesting to me where our lives' paths take us. Sometimes we don't choose it. It chooses us. And
Right.
We would never want to lose a loved one to do ultimately what you have now turning into your legacy. But from afar, and then from seeing you a few months ago and hearing you, it is so admirable, the work that you do. And I applaud your efforts, your law firm's efforts. And I appreciate you being on the show today, just to continue to spread information for people who may need it. So thank you for that, and for all the work that you and your firm does so admirably.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me an outlet to get my brother's message out. It is a legacy that I am proud to continue. It was important to him. I mean, he used to say, hey, forget my name. Don't even worry about my name, but just get that message out. Find the first responders. If anybody out there has a question, feel free to email me, call me at Hansen Rosasco. It's what I do. I'm honored to represent the 9/11 community. Please make no hesitation for you or a family or a friend. Give me a call. I'll set you straight. I'll answer the questions. I'll deal with difficult stuff with you if I need to. Bernard, thank you so much for having me today. It's really an honor and a pleasure to have met you guys down in Florida, and allowing me this outlet to get the message out.
Certainly, Mr. Alvarez, and I'm going to leave you with one. It's from the ancient Jewish text that our family follows, and you may know of it, but you certainly live it. It's from the Pirkei Avot, which is the Jewish text of Jewish ancient scripts. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. And that sounds to me what you're doing for so many. So thank you, sir, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. And guys, this is why I do these conversations every week. Interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And if you don't know Phil Alvarez or the work he does, you need to get on board, whether it impacts you directly or your family or your friends or not. You need to be aware of what they're doing and how they're helping so many. So thank you again. Guys, this will be it for this week's Nomberg Law Live. We'll catch you again in 2 weeks. We're going to take the Thanksgiving week off, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Have a safe, happy, wonderful, and meaningful holiday season. You guys take care and be well.